Gulbenkian was the first to go shopping at the Hermitage Museum, working via Georgy Pyatakov, who he knew as a former head of the Parisian branch of the state Russian bank, Gosbank. Through Pyatakov, he manages to negotiate several blocks of purchases from the Hermitage. His choices are interesting and emphasize just how individual his taste was in a way that I think we cannot perhaps say of Andrew Mellon. With Andrew Mellon, I very much have the sense that he's basically ticking famous artists off a list with which other people have written. In the case of Gulbenkian, yes, he does go after some very well-known artists and well-known paintings, like the Rembrandt of Palace Athene, which is one of the jewels of the Gulbenkian Museum in Lisbon. But he also acquires examples of silverware by 18th century French silversmiths, as well as some other coins and other bits and pieces, which are by no means obvious choices. So the choices really do reflect the fact that the Gulbenkian collections are formed by Gulbenkian. Yes, he has advice, but it is very much his own self-taught expertise and his own taste that is guiding his selections. Gulbenkian was very keen to make sure that all his art collections, be they furniture, carpets, Isnik were paintings, coins, and the famous René Lalique jewelry be kept together. He referred to them as his children, and he wanted his children to be kept together. This is one reason why the art collection ended up in Lisbon rather than in New York or Washington or London, was because the directors of the great museums, like the National Gallery of Art in Washington and the National Gallery in London, were very nervous of agreeing to acquire, even as a bequest, collections where different types of art had to be, according to the legal rules that came with that bequest, had to be kept together. So Gulbenkian was trying to drive a very hard bargain with the art, with the National Gallery and other museum directors, trying to play the long game. And unfortunately, he didn't really have as long as he wanted in terms of he was in his 80s. And so at his death, he was in a sense caught out. He had not specified in his final will where the art was to go. It's as a result of that decision taken after Gulbenkian's death that all the art is now in Lisbon, displayed as Gulbenkian would have wished together, but in a building which is quite modernist in flavor, which I think he probably would have disliked. The only plan we have for a Gulbenkian annex is that designed by William Delano, an American architect, for the National Gallery in London back in the 1930s, when Gulbenkian had originally thought of creating an annex housing his collections next to Trafalgar Square, and again, a wonderful site in the center of a major world capital.